Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Sangat Ji, my name is Harpal Singh, and today we're going to be talking about a number of different topics. We're going to be talking about a few events, and today our opening event is going to be talking about organ donation on Guru Nanak Dev Ji's 550 group of Sade 500 साल ग्रुप ऑफ गुरु नानक देव जी उत्ते ऐसी अंगदान दे उत्ते विचार करेंगे कि अंगदान की हैगा किदां होंदा है की हैगा साडे कोल काफी experts हैगे. We've got a host of experts in front of us. We've got a lead by Dr. Sanghera, organ donation activist and a peer educator and Kidney Research UK facilitator. We've got Bobby Monde, which is chair of Mandeep Monde Memorial Fund. We've got Professor Charan Randhawa from Public Health University of Berkshire.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So I'm not going to do the marathon of English and then Punjabi. I'm going to keep it to an English medium, but break into Punjabi whenever I can. I think the main information we want to get across to you is from the panel here. And organ donation has been, we've presented through Sangat Television 5 episodes previously, a few years back, and we will have links of those attached to these as well. I do urge you all to go and look at those links as well, because we took several weeks to do those. But this is a revamp, and Dr. Sanghera is going to tell us why we have brought the topic of organ donation back to you, the Sangat.
So firstly, a very warm welcome and congratulations to everyone on the auspicious occasion of Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Gurpurab today. Organ donation. This is a topic which is very emotive, very personal, but nonetheless is sadly costing 3 people's lives a day and is a huge issue in our communities. Today we're very lucky to have amazing speakers who've come from all over the country, who all share the passion and the desire to want to overcome the barriers in organ donation in our communities so that all patients can benefit. I myself am very passionate about this. I am the daughter of a kidney transplant patient, and I say that first and foremost because that fact has actually ended up shaping my entire life. I'll just talk a bit about my background and then we'll go on to our other speakers. So in 1975, my dad came to the UK when he was mid-20s. Tragically, shortly after that, his older sister and then followed by his older brother both died from kidney failure back in Punjab. A few years on, and my dad also starts to experience lethargy, quite feeling unwell, quite nauseous, and he was too diagnosed with kidney failure as well at the age of 30. Now at that time, both my mum and my dad were expecting their 3rd child, which was me. Obviously, it was a very difficult time. All they thought of kidney failure was a death sentence. It'd taken the life of 2 of my dad's beloved siblings, and Dad felt that he wasn't going to be here to see me grow. My mom would tell me stories of looking at me as a newborn and just crying, thinking that this baby girl needs her dad. Fast forward now, when I was 9 years old, it was time for my dad to go on dialysis. And for those that don't know, it's the machine which you need to clean your blood and keep yourself alive if your kidneys aren't working. This takes about between 4 to 6 hours at a time, 3 evenings a week, so it's a huge time commitment. Despite the difficulties, my dad's always been quite positive. Having looked at the fate of what happened to his siblings in India, we've been very grateful for the NHS. And however, as the years went by, I started to realise that actually, Dad, this is really, really difficult. I've always had a very close bond with my dad, and I'd always go with him everywhere, be that running errands, going to the cash and carry, and then keeping company on dialysis as well. So it became really apparent that this is actually no life, to be honest. This massive time commitment, feeling so tired, feeling sick all the time, the travel restrictions, the work restrictions, having to adhere to a really strict diet, and fluid intake of 900 mils per day for a grown man is not easy. Not to mention, most significantly, the reduced life expectancy. So this fact is quite shocking. The average 25-year-old on dialysis has a life expectancy of a 75-year-old man. Okay, so huge, huge impact on not only his quality of life, but the quality of life of our young family as well. So my mom stepped forward to get tested to be a donor, but she wasn't a suitable match. Me and my brothers always offered, but my dad said he wouldn't accept from us, and we were told we were too young at the time. Dad did have 2 healthy siblings in India, but unfortunately they didn't come forward. For years, we were living in hope of that life-changing phone call. It was always, and I mean always, at the back of all of our minds. Is it ever going to happen? What will happen if it doesn't? Again, being very mindful of the physical health complications. Well, we did get a phone call in 2000. A kidney had matched from the list. However, the excitement was actually quite short-lived, as 1 week after, my dad was critically ill, fighting for his life after the kidney had failed. And what followed that was emergency surgery, weeks in intensive care, and months of recovery. And at that point, it was tragic that we lost the kidney, but actually we were just so glad that my dad was still alive. Sorry. That said, 7 years on now, on the 30th of July 2007, we had another phone call. So after 15 years of being on dialysis, my dad was blessed with a new lease of life. Sadly, however, a couple of weeks in, and the kidney still hasn't really started working. So it was confirmed that actually, not just rejection, but very aggressive rejection had set in. So we were told so much of this kidney is damaged, there's very slim chances of this kidney working now. However, we never gave up hope. My dad didn't, our family didn't, the consultants at the QE renal department never gave up hope. And after a very turbulent 6 weeks, against all the odds, incredibly, the kidney started working. And 12 years on, my dad's now here to tell the tale. He's dialysis-free, he's enjoying his retirement, he's traveling the world, he's able to watch his children, his grandchildren flourish. He can even enjoy eating a banana and drinking more than 900 mils in a day. There's just no words to describe what this gift of life has meant for him and for our family. And ultimately, I still have my best friend by my side, and for that, I'm eternally grateful to an incredibly selfless donor and the donor's family. After that obviously growing up with this experience inspired me to then become a doctor. At medical school, I'll be that one to start those conversations with my fellow medical students, especially the ones from Asian backgrounds, about organ donation. I was quite surprised that actually, even though they were medical students, they were not on the organ donation register. They weren't open to this. And I was like, well, this is a huge issue, clearly, in our communities. Later on, I got the opportunity to become a peer educator for Kidney Research UK and take it to the next level and have more opportunities to try and raise awareness. And I've always said my motivation for this is just purely, we could not sit back as a family and accept the most precious gift on this earth for my loved one without trying our best to give something back, in the hope that other patients won't have to wait as long or suffer as long as my dad did, or worse still, lose their life whilst waiting. Now, I just want to give a few important stats just to kind of explain, why is this such a big issue in our communities? Why is there such a problem in the Asian community? Well, firstly, as Asians, we're already more likely to need an organ transplant than to actually become a donor. This is because, well, a few reasons, but the two biggest causes of kidney failure are diabetes and high blood pressure, which I'm sure we all have people in our family who have high blood pressure and diabetes. Asian people are already at 5 times greater risk of kidney failure than white people. And now, quite shockingly, an Asian person with diabetes is 10 times more likely to get kidney failure than a white person with diabetes. So firstly, we're already much more likely to get kidney failure and need an organ. Secondly, a successful transplant is much more likely from someone from the same ethnic background. Despite Black, Asian, and ethnic minority patients only making up 11% of our population, we're making up over 1/3 of the active kidney transplant waiting list. 35% of patients waiting for that life-saving phone call are making up the transplant list. However, only 7% of those signed up to the organ donation register are actually from our background. So clearly, the demand is clearly outstripping the supply. Sadly, this means that Asians have to wait much, much longer for an organ transplant, and tragically, many of whom will lose their lives whilst waiting. And I very fondly remember some of my dad's friends who didn't make the wait. And actually, when Dad was diagnosed, I remember some of his Caucasian patients diagnosed at the same time. Majority of them got a kidney within 2 years, whereas Dad, purely because of his ethnicity, had to wait 15 years. To me, this is just an absolute unacceptable health inequality, one that we are actually inflicting on our own people, on our own community, and one that we have the power to change. Hundreds of people's lives can be saved or improved each year by organ donation. One donor can save up to 9 people's lives and help so many more individuals and their families in the most unbelievable, immeasurable way. I'd like to talk briefly now about Sikhism and organ donation. So as we all know, the Sikh philosophy and teachings place a huge emphasis on the importance of selfless service, seva, giving and putting others before oneself, to give without seeking reward or recognition, and to know that all seva is known by the Eternal. Sikhs are also very fearless, and we should be very fearless in attacking this issue and helping our community. Our religion also puts a huge importance on an individual's social responsibility to ensure the well-being of society at large, not just us or our family, but humanity. There are multiple examples in our religion of gurus who have sacrificed not only their own lives, but their families' lives for other people. So Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, our ninth guru, gave his head to protect the freedom for others to practice their religion. Our eighth guru, Guru Har Krishan Ji, gave his life to helping sufferers with the smallpox epidemic. Today we see countless Sikhs all over the world carrying out voluntary charity works, sometimes at considerable risks to themselves. This ethos is firmly embedded in Sikh philosophy and entirely consistent with organ donation. And actually, it can be accepted that organ donation is the ultimate seva and ultimate selfless service of the most noble kind. In addition to seva, there are no taboos in Sikhi for organ donation, organ transplant, post-mortem, nor is there a requirement that the body should have all of its organs intact after death. As we all know, in the Sikh religion, the soul is what migrates in this perpetual cycle of life and rebirth. The physical body is just a vehicle, it's just a vessel for us in this journey. So from there, clearly, we can see there is no prohibition to organ donation, organ transplants, or post-mortems. This year, the British Sikh Report had a special focus on organ donation, and some interesting facts I'll just highlight. Very encouragingly, 9 out of 10 Sikhs said that they would respect the wishes of a family member who wanted to donate their organs after death. This is important because actually in 2017, 40% of potential donors were refused by the family. The family refused consent. It also found that 40% of Sikhs stated that they were registered for organ donation as well and carry an organ donor card. So I'd just like to end by highlighting the fact that if we are so willing to accept a life-saving organ for ourselves or for a loved one, why are we so hesitant to donate? We've come so far in our community and we help so many causes, yet this is something which is still lacking, and this is something which is costing 3 people's lives a day. The person in need of an organ may be a stranger today, but tomorrow it could be someone that you know and love dearly. Now, we have to take the time to think about this, ask questions by all means. It's not, especially if you're not a medical person, it's not an easy topic that, you will know the answers to, but there's so much information out there. And we have to continue the conversation at home because, especially the young people in the families, we are the change makers. We're the ones who have to go to our parents and our grandparents and explain. It's not a taboo subject. This is something that we all have to talk about. Not to sound morbid, but death it will happen to all of us, and at that time, if you can use that opportunity to carry out this ultimate form of seva, then that's very, very, within the spirits of Sikh teachings. So if you believe in organ donation, please, let's all make a difference. This is our problem, not someone else's. This is our community's problem, and for us to make a difference and for us to serve and have an amazing opportunity to do a lot of good for a lot of people. I'd now like to introduce Professor Gert Randhawa. He is the director of the UK Organ Donation and Transplant Research Centre at the University of Bedfordshire, and would like to hear his professional insights.
So, firstly, thank you to the Guru Nanak Gurdwara in Gravesend for hosting today, and thank you to Sangat TV. I guess it's really important to remember that whilst we celebrate the 550th birth anniversary of Guru Nanak, he actually espoused 3 key values. One is around Nam Japo, which is taking God's name. Secondly, around Kirit Karo, which is about working hard and honest living. But most pertinent to today, his final value, which I think is a universal value, is around Vand Jakko, which is about helping others. And I think organ donation, for those of you who follow Guru Nanak's teachings, is a really good example of where, if we follow his teachings, we should genuinely be thinking about this topic. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share our work. as already discussed, I think we have to accept that in our South Asian communities, and specifically in our Sikh communities, we are at higher risk of diabetes and blood pressure and kidney disease. And I think some of the solutions actually reside in Gurdwaras. So because at the moment what we're seeing is, if you go to places like here in Essex, if you go to central London, the major conurbations like Birmingham, Leicester, Leeds, you are seeing lots of dialysis patients. Nearly over 50% of the dialysis patients are from non-white communities. And as we already know, diet and lifestyle play such a big role. So although Gurdwaras are doing so much fantastic seva, one of the observations I would share with you is we could do so much more. Our langars could be even more healthier. Our teas could have less sugar. They could have no sugar. We could choose to engage with the Sangat to say, maybe add the sugar yourself. And just these small steps will begin to make a difference. When we serve the langar, we maybe only have a jalebi rather than jalebi, kheer and laddu. All these little things could make a difference. So I would appeal to people, without disrespecting anybody who works so hard to run Gurdwaras, just to have a think about how Gurdwaras could be a healthier space to encourage a healthier living. So what happens to people, and I meet many patients, some family as well, if they're not going to get a transplant, it's no surprise that a lot of them go back to their country of origin. So people go back to India, Kenya, wherever it may be, and have a transplant. And I don't think you can judge those individuals, because unless you're in their situation and you're left with that life-changing choice, you can't understand what it must be like to live with either kidney failure or heart failure or lung failure or whatever it may be. So therefore, there are people who engage with transplant tourism. And although we know that's illegal, as I said, the only way to stop that is for us as a community to start thinking about organ donation. So some of the challenges, again, we've heard this, and I think we should be quite sort of showing a leadership role around this, is given we are now one of the fastest growing aging communities within the UK, by 2050, over 40% of the British population will be non-white. That's actually not that far away. Yeah, so in 30 years' time, we will be, in many cities, the majority of the population. So we will be the people who have the majority of the health and social care needs. So if we continue to be overrepresented on transplant waiting lists, if we don't do something about organ donation and we don't do something about prevention, we're going to have a huge problem on our hands. And the key issue is this, and I show this on my slide. As a community, we are less likely to say yes to organ donation than the white community. And I'm genuinely interested by that. So what happens is, at that tragic time of death, a family is asked about organ donation, and roughly speaking, about 70% of the time, a white family will say, yes, we would like to donate our loved one's organs. Whereas in the non-white communities, that only happens about 40-odd% of the time. And I think that's interesting, that given we're the most in need to benefit for a transplant, we are less likely to give. And why is that? So as a researcher, we've been carrying out a program of research, and these are some of the things that people say. So a lot of people say, oh, well, I wouldn't donate my organs. I don't want to be on the organ donor register, because they believe, and apologies to the doctors in the audience, they believe the doctors won't try and save their lives. So they'll say, oh, the doctor will finish me off before I'm dead if they know I'm on the register. Well, that's categorically not true, but it's interesting people believe that. So it's our role to engage with the community and think about that. Other people talk about not wanting to donate my eyes because of the ceremony prior to cremation. And again, people will know, well, actually, when you donate your corneas, your physical appearance of the eye doesn't change at all. So again, that's a good opportunity to engage with the public. And again, because we're in the Gurdwara, a lot of people say, well, if the religious leaders gave us an opinion, we would then consider this in a more positive way. So what I would say to religious leaders is they have done some fantastic work. So the Sikh community have helped now to co-design lots of materials. But we need more than that. We need active conversations. So I always sort of say to people, silence is not an option. So being silent on an issue is not the same as giving proactive permission. So I would ask all the Sikh communities in all the Gurdwaras to really think about how they take forward this conversation. Other people say, I don't like the idea of relatives having to see my body being carved up. And again, I think if they were able to speak to donor families and understand actually the huge dignity and respect of donors, then they will probably feel more reassured. And other people talk about life after death and wanting to go complete. And again, I would say, well, it's your soul that lives on. It's not the actual the body. So again, these are sort of opportunities, I think, for engagement. So just to sort of give you some ideas of what we as a community should do, I think the first thing is, as a faith and as a community, we should show some real leadership on this. I don't think we should wait to follow others. So we shouldn't wait to see what the government are going to do, what the Church of England are going to do, what the Muslims are going to do, the Jews, etc. We should show some leadership, because that's what Sikhi is about. It's about having the courage and wanting to do that selfless service to help others. So I would encourage all the Gurdwaras across the UK and beyond to really step up and start having these conversations. And as you can see from some of these photographs, that's beginning to happen. Some people now are stepping up and helping to co-design a lot of the education materials. And also it's fantastic to see the media. So we've had now a lot of the media channels beginning to share the real life stories of people affected by donation and transplantation. And I think that's really good. And most importantly, they do that in different languages. And that's why I think it's so fantastic that Sangat TV have agreed to showcase this really important topic. And also the national media are. So this is an image of the BBC News. So this is prime time news of work we're doing at the moment. This happens to be in a Gurdwara in Luton, and it's about having these proactive conversations and the leaders wanting to say to people, we will have these conversations. And politicians are beginning to do their bit. So this is the previous Secretary of State for Health. You'll probably be aware with the current political situation, they change on a weekly basis. So this Secretary of State, Jackie Dore-Price, has launched a toolkit for MPs, and she launched this symbolically, importantly, in partnership with a donor family from the Mandeep Mudar Memorial Foundation, and I know you're going to hear from them later on today. So I think politicians are beginning to understand the importance of giving visibility to our community when leading these projects, and most importantly, giving visibility to the donor families. And now we're going to see a change in law in next year where it's going to be opt-out. And again, I think it's fantastic that our community are now leading those conversations. And I think it's really important that everybody understands that the law is changing, and therefore we should all be having this conversation at home. The government have also invested in something called the Community Investment Scheme, and it's really, really pleasing to see 3 Sikh projects. So the Mandeep Mudar Memorial Foundation, British Sikh Nurses, and also City Sikhs, who produce this brilliant resource in terms of the British Sikh report. So all of these 3 projects are community-based, and they're doing some really good work in ensuring people are having the conversation. So just to finish off, I've got a few requests. So Gurdwaras, yeah, I think we got so much more we could do. So here's just an example. So this is the Darbar Sahib in Southall. They did a brilliant event where on a Sunday, they got everybody together and they showed it live stream, both on television but also on Facebook. People were able to ask questions both face-to-face but also at home. And so I think every Gurdwara should try and make a commitment to really raise this issue, because organ donation does not discriminate. All Sikhs across the UK are affected by this. Doesn't matter how rich or poor you are, sadly, you're all at high risk of diabetes, kidney failure, other rates of organ failure. So Gurdwaras, please think about organ donation, and please think about the langar. And most importantly, if we are going to have these fantastic langars, maybe have a think about encouraging healthy living, add a few exercise classes, walking groups. We could do so much, yeah? And I would love for us to show the leadership rather than wait for everybody else to do it. And the audience, I think, you know, both the audience here and the audience who are watching the Sangat, we could really do much more ourselves. You know, this is a personal issue. You know, putting it bluntly, if you or your loved one needed a transplant, would you accept an organ? Chances are you probably would.